If you know, you know. And we all know what time it is when it comes to Terence Crawford and Errol. You know, they both the truth. Errol is the number one guy in the welterweight division. However, Terence Crawford is the number one pound for pound today in boxing, period. You can't dispute that due to Terence Crawford's body of work. The man been a pro for like a decade and haven't had a close fight yet. Every fighter he fought, he dominated. The closest fight that Terence Crawford had was a Gamboa, and we all know what happened to Gamboa in that fight. He got knocked out. So Terence Crawford will always top guys like a Canelo Alvarez due to how dominant he is, and also he a fighter that won belts in 3 different weight divisions and also unified the 140-pound division and looking to unify the 147-pound division. And knowing how deep the 147-pound division, whoever does so will be a legendary fighter. And we all know Terence Crawford was the best at 135. I mean, he was so ducked, and it was no question when he moved up from that division that he was the number one guy in that division. Now, that being said, Terence Crawford had an interview with DAZN where he stated that there's no such thing as across the street. There's no such thing as across the line. That's how Terence Crawford feels about the whole situation and fighting Errol Spence. Now, he called out Errol Spence. He stated he wants that fight next. And just a reminder for the ones that don't know, now y'all know, Terence Crawford is the only one that's calling out Errol Spence, which lets you know how much of a beast that Terence is and what kind of character the man has. Now, both Terence and Errol Spence were both at the fight, and they didn't say nothing to each other. However, Errol pulled up, you know. Ain't no punk in him for the people that's claiming that Errol's scared, this and that. Guys, y'all got to keep in mind, this ain't Canelo Alvarez. Errol Spence and Canelo aren't cut from the same cloth. You never see Canelo Alvarez mentioning Jermall Charlo or fighting Jermall Charlo. Matter of fact, all you see him do is vacating the belt, letting you know that he don't want no smoke with a Jermall Charlo or Andre. So whenever you hear Canelo Alvarez wanting to unify the middleweight division, it's usually his promoter saying it for him, it's usually his team. But you never hear Canelo Alvarez say on the microphone, I want to unify the division. I want to fight the best. I want to fight Jermall Charlo and Andre, and I won't move up from the middleweight division till I fight these guys. You will never hear Canelo Alvarez say that. And if you actually have a press member that asks Canelo Alvarez about Jermall Charlo and ask him the real tough questions, they probably or most likely will ban that certain person from attending any press conference. Meanwhile, you got Errol Spence on the other hand, who mentions Terence Crawford and talks about Terence Crawford without being asked about him. During the press conference with Sean Porter, you heard him stating time and time again he won't move up from the welterweight division till he unify the division. And he also stated that he will fight Terence Crawford, and if he can't get that fight next, he's willing to fight the Danny Garcias of the world or any big name at the welterweight division till he gets that fight. However, he stated time and time again he will fight Terence Crawford and won't move up from the welterweight division till he do so. So that's the difference between a Canelo Alvarez and Errol. And the fact that they didn't speak to each other even though they were in the same arena doesn't mean a thing. You know, obviously both fighters got their own pride. However, they got bunch of respect for each other, and they know they will meet down the line. And Terence and Errol both know that this is their version of Hagler Hearn, Leonard versus Hearn. This is their version of Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd. This is the fight of the decade, and they both know that. However, Terence Crawford, on one hand, he feels that there's no need to wait, and Errol Spence feels the same way. It's just the fact that obviously business come in between. Hate or love it, boxing is run by business. And the fact that PBC want Errol Spence to be the dominant force at the welterweight division before he gets that fight so he could have the bigger split or the bigger payday, that's the business aspect of boxing. But you can't blame the fighters for the business aspect of it. Now, it was a low blow that the PBC did not have Terence Crawford listed as the champion or on the posters when Manny Pacquiao fought Keith Thurman. You know, you still have to recognize another champion, even though Errol Spence fights with PBC, and obviously Terence Crawford fights for ESPN. But Terence Crawford contract with ESPN and Top Rank should be up by the end of the year, so he should be a free agent pretty soon. And then he should really consider going to the PBC because all the big names are signed to the PBC. And then on the other hand, you won't have a promoter that's taking 30% of your purse. On top of that, your old promoter taking 8%. And if Floyd Money Mayweather left Top Rank and went to Al Heyman and made $1 billion, and Mikey Garcia did the same thing, and you got even Oscar De La Hoya, he did that in the past. So all these fighters left Top Rank for a reason. It wasn't a coincidence. So Terence Crawford should really consider signing with a PBC. Now, that being stated, that's his decision. However, if he do sign with a PBC, the big names like Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman won't have no reason to duck him and avoid that fight. As we all know, Danny and Keith Thurman turned down a fight with Terence Crawford for good reasons. They don't want that L on their record. Now, Errol Spence, on the other hand, that's one fighter that's willing to fight him. But like I stated time and time again, I peep what people like to do. When I make a video talking about Terence Crawford, they bring up Errol Spence, talking about Terence don't want that work with Errol Spence, even though he already stated time and time again he does want that fight next. And then when I make a video about Errol Spence, it be the same guy or the same people that talk about Terence Crawford is avoiding Errol Spence say the same thing about Errol. So they just use both Terence and Crawford to talk shit about them. It be these Danny Garcia fans, Keith Thurman fans, Pacquiao fans, Canelo fans even, whoever. All they like to do is mention Terence to talk shit about Errol and vice versa for Terence. But like I said before, I peep what people like to do. And if you may ask, well, why do they do that? The reason why is because maybe both Terence and Errol already beat their favorite fighter, or the fact that they don't want these guys to be on top and they want to discredit these guys no matter what. However, like I said, if both of these fighters are cut from the same cloth, then just give credit to both of these guys. And whoever wins the fight, then he's the better fighter, instead of discrediting these guys every chance y'all get. And that goes to all the media members that like to do the same thing. There's a lot of people that fall into the comments and believe in the comments and then just either bash one person and ride for the other guy. Like I said, just give both of them guys their credit. If somebody ducking for real, then talk about it. However, if you just fall into the hypocrisy of the fans, then you really don't have your own opinion. If you fall into what the comments say and don't go by what the logics tell you and putting facts together and calculating information and go based on that, you rather rely on the comments and what your fans tells you on the comment section. Like I stated time and time again, it be the same people that contradict themselves every time I post an Errol and a Terence Crawford video, because you never see both Errol or Terence contradict themselves the way Anthony Joshua was lying to the media to avoid a fight with Deontay Wilder. You don't see neither of these guys act the way Canelo Alvarez and vacate belts and avoid certain fighters and cherry picks and maneuver around. Like I stated time and time again, you can't blame the aspect of the business on the fighter. However, on a Gervonta Tank situation, we all know he stated one time that he wanted to fight Lomachenko on an interview, but then when Lomachenko comes out and calls him out, you don't see Gervonta Tank Davis respond to him. And that's why people kind of question that, because the fact that Gervonta Tank Davis ain't keeping the same energy with Lomachenko that he's keeping up with Tevin Farmer. We all know Floyd Mayweather trying to move him slowly, and Floyd stated, don't hate on the fighter or blame the fighter, blame me. But I understand if Gervonta Tank Davis get the shorter end of the stick by the fans, because obviously he not keeping the same energy. But both Errol and Terence Crawford got a bunch of respect for each other and kept the same energy toward each other from the get-go. And like I stated time and time again, they cut from the same cloth. And for this fight in particular, we don't have to be afraid of this fight losing lust if either fighter loses, because even though boxing is the theater of the unexpected, we don't have to worry about Errol Spence losing to Sean Porter or Keith Thurman or even a Manny Pacquiao, and on the other hand, Terence Crawford losing to a Danny Garcia, because that won't happen. These guys are on a different level. Both of them guys are the most avoided fighters in the world for a reason, and they just happen to be on the same division right now. So us as the fans, we lucky to have them in the same division, but also, hate the business aspect of boxing, of why they don't fight next instead of the fighters themselves. Now, that being said, there's no reason Terence should stick with Top Rank and be loyal, because they promoting a lesser talented fighter like Tyson Fury and promote Lomachenko as the number 1 pound for pound on a Crawford pay-per-view instead of talking about Crawford and opponents that he could really fight, because we all know Crawford called out Lomachenko before, and Lomachenko said absolutely not. So why talk about that fight? Or why even mention Lomachenko? If Crawford is the number 1 pound for pound and he never lost, unlike a Lomachenko who lost to Salido and didn't want to give him a rematch. He ducked the rematch with Salido and also ducked a Pacquiao fight because he didn't want to retire Pacquiao and build the name off Pacquiao, even though we just saw what Pacquiao did to Keith Thurman. So we all know what time it is when it comes to that. So like I stated time and time again, we hear Shakur Stevenson talk about how he's not promoted like he's supposed to, and they rather promote Lopez and Lomachenko more so, and they rather do the same thing to Tyson Fury. So if that's your buddy right there, and he's like a little brother, why allow that to happen to you, Terence? And either way, if Terence rather stick with Top Rank and do his own thing and be different, then more power to him. Hopefully he makes the right decisions, but I will support him either way, no matter what Terence does. I feel like he's been misunderstood by the media. However, at the end of the day, he's a fighter that likes to train in between fights. So his work ethic is out of this world. His story, the fact that he got shot in the head when he was younger and turned out to become a pound for pound number 1 today, I mean, that's a perfect story right there. He deserves a movie. So more power to him. More power to Errol too. Hopefully that fight happens sooner than later. And when it does, shit, y'all can have all my money. Let me just see that fight. So like I always say, subscribe below if you're trying to get smarter by the minute. If you're trying to get dumb about a second, don't listen to these casual fans. And follow Lantoon Boxing for the funniest boxing memes on Instagram. That's my guy. Support my guy. And follow me at Aki TV and subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell. All these links are in the description box below. And to be continued on the next episode of Aki TV. Peace, and we out.